in Minnesota. Who are some of the candidates that you expect them to look at in terms of replacing him?
Well, look, this is about fixing the quarterback problem in Minnesota, as it is in Cleveland. And you're going to hear this over and over. The teams that fire these coaches, generally speaking, are the teams that have quarterback issues. There's a correlation between teams with quarterback issues and teams that change coaches. In Minnesota, they're going to want to find somebody that can help groom that next quarterback. Now, again, they could go defense side of the football, and we'll see how that shakes out. But to me, they're going to look for somebody, as you mentioned, Mort, who energizes the fan base, who can grow that quarterback. There's a list of coaches out there right now that would fit into that category. There are a lot of different ways they could go with this.
Yeah, listen, I have a list of 15 or 20 guys, you know, so it's very difficult to identify. But I think they go offensive side. You know, a guy like Jay Gruden, the Bengals offensive coordinator, has been mentioned in a number of places. Darrell Bevel, who used to coach in Minnesota, and now the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator, but they're going to be in the playoffs for a while. So that one may drag on a bit. But the other thing is, in both Cleveland and Minnesota, what you hear is some concern from representatives of coaching clients who say, are those stable places? Before the Wilf family bought the Vikings, used to be one of the most stable franchises where they were patient with their coaches, and now there's a lot of instability, and the same thing in Cleveland.
I think the Vikings were reaching out to some candidates here past few weeks, past few months maybe for all we know, trying to get a gauge as to whether or not they'd be interested. I think that they had some indirect contact through a third party with Bill O'Brien. I think they might have done the same thing with David Shaw at Stanford. Right. There were some people that they reached out to just to get a feel of whether they would have any interest in coming to Minnesota. It's something that a lot of teams do at this time of the year to try to gauge what candidates they will or will not be able to get to bring in there for that particular job.
I'll add one last thing. With Leslie Frazier now fired, we have now eliminated another minority coach in this league. We're down to 2. Last year, it was 0 for 8, and the league has worked very hard to try to identify those minority candidates, and there will be. Lovie Smith, obviously, former Chicago Bears coach, is on that list. David Shaw of Stanford would have been one of those guys, but Shaw prefers to stay at Stanford from all indications. So that's something the league is monitoring, but they can't force a team to hire anybody. The team still has to make that selection themselves, but they are required to interview minority candidates throughout the process.
All right, so Leslie Frazier out after 4 seasons in Minnesota, 5-10-1 this season. He finishes 21-32-1.